What movie did you like the most in your childhood?
Honestly, I was not very interested in movies as a child. I was much more interested in literature and reading and imagining worlds through reading than I was in watching movies or television. So it really wasn't until I was in my early 20s before I became seriously interested in film and started watching films in a way that was appreciating them more and seeing the commonality between film stories and the stories that I loved as a child.
How did you find this interest? Was there a special context? Maybe you've read a book, you met someone?
It was actually in college and my first exposure to foreign films and art cinema, because before that it was mostly kind of more American Hollywood, which I'm not very interested in. So, but as a university student, I had the opportunity to see some great European films and even some older, like American classic films, and that's really the way that I became interested in the study of film. Also, I was, as an undergraduate, I was majoring in literature and in history, but I thought that's not very practical in terms of like getting a job. So I thought, the study of film kind of combined my interest with something that seemed like it would be more practical as well. So that was kind of the path. And then I ended up diverting from that to get a PhD and become a teacher. So I ended up not actually being a filmmaker.
As you said, you've worked as a producer on several movies. Which is the one you are the proudest about?
Well, I am mostly interested in documentary production. So, and the ones that I feel the proudest of, I guess, are the ones that did seem to have some kind of impact, because that's really what you're trying to achieve with a documentary, is helping people learn about something, but also maybe helping something change in the world. And so with my partner at the time, I made a film about a rural struggle for peasant power in Brazil. And that was actually widely seen there, and it helped them organize their movement there. So that was the one that that was the most successful, both in terms of being seen and achieving its goal.
What did you learn as a teacher, as a professor? What's the greatest lesson you've learned from these 28 years you've been teaching at Grand Valley University?
That's a good question. I mean, the most important thing I've learned is how important learning is, and how it's something that you always continue doing, no matter how old you are or how smart you are or how accomplished you are. And also to be careful about what you think you know, because there's a very strong likelihood that what you think you know is not true or not the full truth, or there's much more that you need to learn about it. And I've learned that from my students on many occasions. Like, I think I know something, and then I realize I don't really know as much about this as I thought I did, or I didn't see it from that perspective. And that's the reciprocal relationship that you have as a teacher with students, is yes, you're giving them something, but they're giving you just as much, if not more. And part of that is an appreciation for what you don't know, if that makes sense. And then the other thing I think is that what a privilege it is to be a teacher and to be in this world where ideas really matter and where people get excited about it. And it's, it's hard to think of another profession outside of the creative fields, because I do think it's also a creative endeavor, especially when you're working with students who are creative and excited about the work that they're doing, that you yeah, you're always learning from them, and you have the privilege of and the time that a lot of other people don't have in their jobs. So yeah, I mean, I think it's a really privileged position.
Yeah, but why?
Cinema, and it sounds like a cliche, but I really believe it, has the power of the visual story is one of the it's one of the most powerful, if not the most powerful, media that humans have yet created. So it's, and I think it is one of these things, again, to use a cliche, like with great power goes great responsibility. And that's what you need to kind of pound in your students' head, is like, this is a meaningful medium too. It's not just entertainment, or it's not just, eye candy or whatever, that you should have something significant to communicate because this medium is powerful. And I really do think it's, it's kind of obvious, but it's the most powerful way that we have created to communicate with one another, so it should be significant.
How are you using your time during this sabbatical?
Well, it is definitely a voyage of discovery. So I'm taking the time that I have the privilege to have to travel and visit some places that I've always wanted to visit, and to experience these kind of interactions with people in other places and learn about, this has been great visiting the university here, how your programs compare to ours, how the student culture works, a little bit of that sort of thing. And then ultimately I'll be spending several weeks in Istanbul, because the actual topic of my sabbatical project is Turkish cinema.
I also currently have a special interest in the representation of nuclear terrorism in American cinema. Can you tell me how did you come about this topic? Why did you choose it?
Okay, yeah. You want me to go all the way back? When I was 13 years old, I read a book called Hiroshima by John Hersey, and it was about the bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and it was a journalistic account, and it had a profound impact on me as a kid, and it stayed with me. And at the time, one of our assignments in school, if we chose that book, was we had to illustrate it. So here's where we get back maybe to the cinematic part of it too. So I made these charcoal drawings where I tried to represent in imagery the impact that the book had on me. And so that stayed with me.
You said you had an interest in Turkish cinema. Are you familiar with Romanian cinema?
I am a little familiar with Romanian cinema. I actually do teach a segment on Romanian cinema sometimes in my World Cinema class, and I use it as an example of one of the new waves. So for Romania, that was kind of, even though the filmmakers didn't like to be called, a new wave or a, avant-garde or whatever, but there were some commonalities, at least from the perspective of film critics who were mostly seeing films that were playing at film festivals. And so I wrote about a film called The Way I Spent the End of the World. And do you know that film?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So, and I wrote about that as an example of the Romanian New Wave.
Tell us a few words about the department you teach at.
Okay, so I'm in a new department called Visual and Media Arts, and it consists of what used to be at my school the fine arts, so painting, ceramics, sculpture, metalsmithing, printmaking, and my major program, film and video production, along with photography, were removed from the School of Communications, which included journalism and broadcasting and so some of those kinds of areas. removed from that school and combined with the more fine arts programs. So, and it just started this semester. This is the first semester, and I'm not there. So I don't know how it's going. What I hear is it's a transition. So we have to redefine ourselves in film and video and photography more than the others do, because there are more of them and there are more of their space and their resources and that sort of thing. So in a sense, we're kind of joining them rather than like combining. So we'll see how it works out. I think one of the biggest hurdles is kind of unrealistic expectations. So what they can reasonably expect, and in the short term anyway. And so we've had many students who have been quite successful working in the film industry, but it takes them longer than they expect in many cases. And it's just super competitive. There are lots of people who want to do it.
Fill in the gap in this phrase. Cinema is...
Truth, 24 frames per second. Can I use that one? No, I guess not. Cinema is... I guess it is it has what I love about cinema is for me the story, but also the interplay of light and shadow, all of the formal elements that make it its own storytelling medium that sometimes gets neglected, I think. So that's the part that we have to remember, what is the root of cinema, and it's motion, but it's also light, and the painting with light or writing with light. That's an important part of it too. The images, the beauty of the images, the ability to create beautiful stories through images.